Welcome back to Movie Guys Improvise, the MGI podcast you are listening to.
Chill with realms.
Jurassic Mark.
And Faerhad Targaryen. It has been a grim year, 2020. I hope everybody is keeping their spirits high. I know it's been rough for a lot of people, but please keep your head up. Even if it sounds corny, you will make it out of rock bottom. You know, it's been rough for everyone. So please keep your spirits up, keep your head up. We will get through this. 2021, some crazy things have already happened, but it may get worse before it get better. But hopefully we are headed in the right direction. Now, on this particular podcast, the last episode was about another Netflix series, Dear White People. We just talked about season 1, but we all really enjoyed it, so we all really recommend it. So if you haven't seen it yet, definitely need to go and check out at least season 1, then check out our review of it, and then go ahead and check out the rest of the entire show. For today's episode, we're talking about a movie in a foreign language, The Monkey King, full title, The Monkey King, Havoc in Heaven's Palace. So this was recommended to us from Realms. A lot of other works have taken inspiration from what this is based on. But this movie itself, I have to say, I'm going to keep my reservations for the entirety of this episode, but Realms, I'm sorry to say, I really did not like this movie. But I understand what it is. So this movie is based on Journey to the West. It's not like Dragon Ball Z, which I love. I grew up on Dragon Ball Z. You grew up on Dragon Ball Z. A lot of our friends grew up on Dragon Ball. And Dragon Ball is based on the same thing that this is based on. It's not like Dragon Ball is based on the Monkey King. It's based on Journey to the West, which the Monkey King is also based on. So there might be other iterations or other adaptations of Journey to the West that I would enjoy, but I really did not like this movie. But I'm gonna be fair. I don't want to be super duper harsh on it. I'm gonna be keeping my opinions reserved for the conversation, and then eventually when we get to ratings. But I'll stop my yapping for now. Since this was your choice, go ahead and tell us what this movie is, what it's about, and why you chose this as today's episode.
Well, you dropped a pretty decent description on what it is. The reason that I chose it was just to change things up a little bit. You know, it's not an anime, but as you said, it's inspired a lot of different animes that have come out. One of our favorites, Dragon Ball Z.
Yep. Dragon Ball.
I was hoping to drop a little bit of, backstory knowledge on some people who don't know too much about Monkey King.
Well, yeah, I think this movie, I can easily see the inspiration that they got for Goku. I'm assuming the main character, Son Wukong, him being the Monkey King, I can definitely see the similarities there from that character and we have for Goku, but I find a lot of differences as well. But
definitely.
Yeah. Before we get into the deep dive of opinions, my harsh opinions, as we will get to, just first impressions. I'm just being honest. I really didn't like this one. Realms, did you like it? Dislike it?
It was a decent watch for me the first time around, but it wasn't really easy for me to watch it again, per se, because it's been a while since we did the podcast. I had to rewatch it just to refresh my memory, and I actually struggled to get through it the second time, to be honest.
Gotcha. Okay, that's fair. And throughout each review that we've had, we've all had different scores. So,
well, I'm not going to be afraid to disagree because I actually quite liked this one. So I think I might have the most positive takeaway of the trio by the sound of it. I thought this was really imaginative, a very creative movie. And I loved the lead performance by Donnie Yen. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
That's him. Yep.
He was fantastic. Yeah. My gosh.
His performance is probably the best within the series, like the different movies, in my opinion, so far. Because I think I watched maybe 20 minutes of the next movie, and I didn't like that they switched the main character. Like, it was the same main character, but different actor, and I didn't really enjoy that.
Oh, why? So Donnie Yen didn't want to come back for part 2 and part 3?
I'm not sure if it was that he didn't want to come back or if they just had some reason not to bring him back, but they recasted him.
Yeah, I really hate when they do that.
Sometimes it can't be helped. Like if an actor dies, I know that's why they replaced Dumbledore like 3 movies into the Harry Potter series.
Yeah, that's true. But just on the topic of Dumbledore, I hated that actor they brought in for. Not saying that, not a different actor couldn't have taken Richard Harris's place and honored his performance, but Michael Gambon's take on it, I hated it. But that's a whole another, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I've yet to meet somebody who actually liked New Dumbledore.
Yeah.
But
with that one, for me, I didn't initially like when they switched, but I grew into the character, like, since the recast happened kind of early on in the series. And they did so many movies.
Yeah, 8 movies total, and he was in the majority of the series. I can understand the actor and his portrayal growing on people. Didn't do it for me. It never stuck. For me, Dumbledore in the books died at part 6, and Dumbledore in the movies died at part 2.
Heyo.
Yeah.
I can agree with that. Because the new one did grow on me, but he's still, the very first one was just absolutely perfect.
Yeah, he was Dumbledore. So yeah, didn't know that this movie was part of a trilogy, like when I was reading up on it after I had watched it. And I guess it sucks for the fan base. I can imagine maybe most of the fan base probably also didn't like that they switched Sun Wukong's actor. But yeah, let's get into it, gentlemen. So I'll reserve my dislikes for later because that's going to be a longer list. So I'll start off with the stuff that I liked. And then, Mark, you can take it from there because it sounded like you did actually enjoy the film. So I actually watched this movie right off of the heels of binging Cobra Kai. See, I watched this during the week, and the weekend before this, I binged the entire series of Cobra Kai, seasons 1, 2, and 3. So what I did like, after having, coming off the heels of a martial arts TV show, I enjoyed the scenes, like the action sequences, minus the special effects. Okay, the special effects is another point against the movie, but I did like the action sequences, the choreography behind it, and the way they wielded their weapons. That I actually liked. I liked that part of the movie. The actual portrayals was fine. That's the thing, though. Like, perhaps Donnie Yen brought a faithful approach to Sun Wukong. I don't know, because I don't know the actual original Journey to the West story and how Sun Wukong is supposed to be. I get that he's kind of like a happy-go-lucky character, and that's a trait that he shares with Goku, but that's kind of where the similarities end, aside from being a species that has to do with apes, because Sun Wukong seems to have a lot of different abilities. Like, he has superhuman strength. He can fly, even though they had the Nimbus Cloud there, which is another thing I guess that Dragon Ball took. He can shapeshift into other people, and he can also replicate himself. So we'll get into the plot later on, but that's pretty much what I liked. I guess I also like the cinematography, but that also goes hand in hand with the special effects, which I didn't like. So I'm just trying to focus on the positives. My favorite character would be the Bull Demon King. I don't think he had enough conviction to do what he was doing. It wasn't entirely convincing why he wanted to just all of a sudden get revenge on the Kingdom of Heaven, or the Palace of Heaven, I should say. But I like that he stuck to it. I like that he stuck to his plan, but it wasn't totally convincing why he wanted to attack the Palace of Heaven again.
Yeah, he was consistent, but I do wish they did actually give a backstory as to why he wanted to do it. Because they just jumped straight into it.
Exactly. They jumped straight into a lot of different things. Like, for example, like the training that Sun Wukong was getting from his master. I think the master's name was Subuti. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. It seemed like he got picked up. Yeah. He got picked up by his master, was trained for like a day, and then he left. But anyway, I don't want to focus too much on the negative now. That's what I liked the most about the movie, was the action sequences, like the actual martial arts that went on in the action sequences. But that's pretty much where it ends for me. Mark, you take it from here.
Well, actually, at first, I didn't care for the special effects. This movie relies pretty heavily on CGI, computer animated imagery, which is something that you can definitely go overboard on. But then I started to realize that it has a certain surreality to it. I don't think these effects are meant to look 100% realistic. I think they're supposed to evoke something more mythic, if that makes sense. Like if you look at the horses in heaven, they don't look anything like real horses. And I know that's partly because they're animals, but also are dragon animals, whatever, but also partly because of the way they have the sheen to them. I think part of that is by design. It's compelling because it doesn't look 100% realistic. That makes it feel more otherworldly, if you get my drift.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of see where you're going with that as well. I just meant like was that it seemed like the budget for it was really low because everything that was not real looked really, really fake. And for what's supposed to be a high budget movie, that part was just kind of disappointing. That's all I meant. At the same time, though, I can kind of vibe with what you're saying because, like I said, I want to be rational with my criticisms. And one of the things I was thinking was, maybe it's just not meant to look that real, like you were saying. And maybe the producers and the director just didn't care because maybe I'm not the target audience. Maybe the target audience solely is supposed to be younger, and the younger audience, they would just be fascinated by the surreality, like you were saying. For them, it would be fine. The special effects would be totally fine. So I was trying to look at it from both angles to kind of ask myself, like maybe that's what they were going for, and for that reason the special effects weren't too great. Like another example of the criticism that I'm making here is just like the flying. The flying looked really, really fake. But if you compare the flying there to a Hollywood film like Man of Steel, the budget for that movie was really high. And for the criticisms people make for that movie, I don't think the special effects is one of them. Special effects hold up quite well for a movie like that. The action sequences look like what you would expect from a 21st century modern Superman movie.
I think this would read differently in China. I can't speak to Chinese cinema, but I've done a little bit of reading about the history of Japanese cinema. And there's a famous anecdote. I can't remember what movie this was specifically, but at one point, Toho Studios, which is the studio that produced those great samurai movies in the 50s and then the Godzilla movies, they hired an American special effects company to do the effects for one of their films, a science fiction epic. And they ended up cutting most of the effects that the Americans created because the studio thought the effects looked too realistic. And it was just a difference in philosophy because in Japanese cinema, there's an emphasis on pretty images, even if those images don't necessarily look real. It's sort of like how if you freeze frame an anime at any random point, the image still looks pretty. Whereas if you freeze frame like a Disney animated movie, the characters might look distorted or like a little out of shape because that's more in line with how objects move in real life. But the individual shots don't look as pretty, if that makes any sense. I'm rambling here. But
I didn't know that, but yes, that does make sense.
I think it's just different philosophies of special effects at work.
It makes sense. But man, can I tell you, like, the thing that went through my head was all the freeze frames from anime shows that were terrible. It just like a compilation just went through my head.
Oh, yeah. Well, like with Dragon Ball Z, where there'd be like one fight that took about 6 episodes and half of it was portrayed in close up. Yeah. Now I get you.
What else, like if you wanted to talk about it, Mark, was there like aside from like, the appreciation for the special effects, were there anything else about the movie that you really, really liked?
Yeah, Donnie Yen's performance, like we said before, he's phenomenal. He's high energy, he's curious, and it would be really, really easy to make this character annoying, but I think there's something really genuine about his performance that prevents it from becoming obnoxious. He seems just genuinely fascinated with everything he sees, and that's infectious. You can't help but smiling along with him after a certain point. At least I couldn't.
Well, I would agree with you halfway. I think Donnie Yen did a fantastic job acting, but the character annoyed the shit out of me. I did not like this portrayal of Sun Wukong at all. Maybe for some people he was likable, but I didn't even find him likable. The things that he did, the things that he said, this wasn't it for me. I'm sorry.
Was he supposed to be likable though? Because the character ends up atoning for his sins for 500 years. So like maybe he wasn't supposed to be 100% likable, but that doesn't mean he can't be compelling.
That's true. I mean, like I said, I don't know how the original Journey to the West story went. The only thing I had to go off of was the biggest inspiration to the world that comes from Journey to the West and Sun Wukong, which is Goku. And I was just constantly like that. That was my only reference point was Goku, and you know, thinking like, would Goku do something like this? Is Goku able to do something like this? And weighing that on a scale mentally and thinking, this is just not stacking up. But I also understand that Goku is very loosely based on Son Wukong. Goku in his own right is a very original character, right, Realms?
Yeah. The only thing is, like, I feel Son Wukong kind of more emulated a Dragon Ball Super Goku, because I feel like they dumbed him down a lot in Dragon Ball Super.
I see. Okay, I'm not surprised, but I was never really much of a fan of Dragon Ball Super, so can't really speak to that.
I can't blame you. A lot of the reason I like Dragon Ball Super is mainly nostalgia, but I understand like the things that people don't really care too much about with it, because I feel like they could have done some different things a lot better.
Yeah, I think nostalgia was one of the main appeals of Dragon Ball Super as a show. Dragon Ball Super is what I call a legacy sequel, a sequel to a different body of work that came out 10 to 20 years prior, in this case, Dragon Ball Z. I would say the new Star Wars trilogy is also a legacy sequel because the last time there was a set of original Star Wars movies was 10 to 20 years ago. Same with Cobra Kai that I was talking about earlier on. It's a sequel television show to a series of movies 10 to 20 years ago. Creed, another one. I actually really, really liked Creed, which is a sequel to the Rocky series of movies. I would consider that a legacy sequel as well. Before we move on to the dislikes, because that's where my main focus is going to be for this, unfortunately. Rams, did you want to talk about anything else that you really liked about The Monkey King?
The main thing that I liked about it was just the small similarities that I could see about it that were taken and used in Dragon Ball Z, like his golden form, essentially. When he gets the golden hair,
Yeah.
Wukong has the golden fur. One of the deities, the main deity in heaven, I forget his name, the god in heaven, he transforms into a dragon towards the end of the movie.
Yes.
And of course, the dragon from Dragon Ball Z. That's the first thing you think.
Yep.
So just little things like that. What was another one? They had his giant ape form. Although for that one, I guess this is more of a dislike. It looked very cartoonish compared to like the rest of the movie.
The giant ape?
Yeah.
Okay.
The way that they animated that whole scene between the giant ape and the bull, it seemed like it got extra cartoony at that point.
Okay. Maybe that could just be because it was toward the end of the movie and they had already spent most of their CGI budget on the first and second acts. Maybe. I don't know how filming works like that. But for me, I was so unimpressed with the CGI throughout that I didn't even notice how it was consistency-wise. Focusing back on Son Wukong as a character, the first thing that I would say that I really didn't like is just the fact that out of nowhere, he has so many powers. I mean, he was born from the one crystal, right? Nua, who sacrificed her body to protect heaven after the first time the bull demon king attacked. He was born from that one crystal, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it was like Son Wukong was in that crystal, like he was alive in that crystal, or if that crystal went all the way down to Earth. I'm guessing it's Earth. If it went all the way down to Earth and he became trapped inside of it, and then once he broke out of it, he had special powers. I don't know which one is which. They didn't really make that clear, or at least I couldn't tell. So the fact that he has so many powers that just went unexplained, I didn't like that. So We see that he's able to fly. We see that he can shapeshift. We see that he has super strength. We see that he can breathe underwater totally normally. Later on, we see that he can multiply. So, how is it that he has all these powers? Is it just because he was born in that crystal? I don't like that they showed him having like a seemingly unlimited series of powers, like one after another. He's revealing what he can do.
I mean, myths usually don't explain how characters come by those powers, though. Like that's something we expect from modern sci-fi and fantasy, but I don't know when Journey to the West was written. I think like what the 1600s, something like that.
16th century, yeah.
16th century. Thank you. Yeah, it back. If you go back and look at the ancient Greek and Roman myths or the myths of ancient Sumeria, you're always running into characters with sort of nebulously explained powers. That's just the way people told stories back then.
I understand that, and I wasn't even thinking like comparing Sun Wukong to other, like how other characters, like other, I guess, superhuman characters in modern day or even later centuries. I was thinking of him within the universe of this movie. No other character had the amount of powers that he did. His biggest adversary, I would say, is Shen, who is the guard to the southern gate. Really hated Sun Wukong, and the only two powers I noticed him having, actually three. He could fly, he had superhuman strength, and he shapeshifted. He used that power one time, but that's it. Sun Wukong could do so much more. Even the Jade Emperor realms, you were saying how he turned into a dragon. That seemed to be the only power that he had. Meanwhile, Sun Wukong can do everything. Like that's what I basically mean, Mark, is that like all these other characters have a limited capacity of powers, but Sun Wukong has more.
It didn't explain like how he got his initial powers that he was doing in the beginning, but I guess one reason he could have gained some of those other powers, like multiplying himself, the shadow clone jutsu, Naruto.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he doesn't use it until like the end, but I'm like, what? Where is this even coming from? Because that's the thing. He's picked up by his, I guess his sensei, Subhuti. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, but I thought that the training sequence in this movie would be longer than it was. But this is another reason why I don't like Sun Wukong, because like everywhere he goes, he just annoys the people he's around. I can understand Shen, because Shen has something against him, but for everybody else, he just pokes into other people's business and gives them and makes them have a bad day. When he was interacting with the other students of Subhuti, he kind of picked a fight. And all that happened after that was that Subhuti basically dismissed him and said that his training was over. So he gets on his Nimbus, goes back to his community of monkeys, and declares himself the Monkey King. I would expect like a little more training. I'm guessing maybe the training had to do with how he got some of his powers, but we didn't really see that. We saw him shapeshift for the first time up there, but that's pretty much it. I don't know if he had that shapeshifting power beforehand. So that's one thing. So and then we see him eventually go down to the Dragon King underwater, and he's able to breathe. Did he always just have that power? I wouldn't expect that. If he really just is a anthropomorphic monkey or a humanoid monkey, he shouldn't be able to breathe underwater unless he inherited that power, or if he was born with special abilities. Then again, we don't see any of the other monkeys do that. So I don't know if that's just something they can all do, but normally you can't. As a matter of fact, I don't think we see any other characters underwater like that. And maybe I'm just also thinking too deep into it. Like I said, maybe I wasn't the target audience, so I shouldn't have been constantly poking my mind into these questions, thinking and just enjoy the movie for what it was. But that's how it was in my initial watch. That's how I felt. Is how is he able to breathe underwater like that? And then after that, out of his own curiosity, well, even before that, he says that he's going to borrow the weapons and armor that he takes from the Dragon King, but he never gives it back. He just takes it. What did the Dragon King ever do to him? Was I supposed to not like the Dragon King and root for Sun Wukong? Because I didn't. To me, that was just Sun Wukong being kind of a jerk, being kind of like a troll, doing what he wants and not caring about the consequences. Then he takes the staff out of the water which causes kind of like a tsunami throughout the earth. But that was another thing. We're seeing how much power he has. He's able to do this as well. I'm like, wow, is this going to amount to anything in the movie? Eventually it does, because he's the one who goes up against the Bull Demon King. But I guess the amount of power he has is never fully appreciated. It's only exploited, because later on we see that the Bull Demon King kind of uses him. Or maybe I'm just being too harsh. Am I being too harsh?
Well, not necessarily, but I feel like a lot of the stuff that he's given, the powers he's given, it's kind of like stuff that they expect you to assume where it's coming from, which is actually not even assumed, because he's born from a deity, so it's kind of like, I guess they're supposed to expect you to realize it's coming from the fact that he's, born from heaven, born from what was it?
A crystal, it seems like.
Yes, the crystal that fell from heaven, and then things like him, facing the what was it, the Dragon King that was underwater.
Yeah, under the sea.
He does come off kind of annoying, but at the same time, he dropped down there and he destroyed what he thought was a problem, and so he didn't do that initially to cause any problems. And then he gets down there and the Dragon King immediately tries to deceive him, and I don't know. I can kind of see like both sides of it. Like I can see why he would come off as a nuisance, but at the same time, it's like he's not trying to be. But then, people are doing sketchy shit to him.
Okay, yeah, that's true. I should consider that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that his community of monkeys were kind of being like that. Their peace was being disturbed by the Dragon King. I guess I must have missed that. But if that was happening, then yeah, I guess that does warrant him kind of retaliating. But I didn't catch that that's actually what was happening. To me, it seemed like he went down there unprovoked and then stole armor and weapons for.
No, he definitely went there unprovoked because he was trying to get weapons for his village. But I'm saying when he got down there, there was like this big beast that he took down, and he thought it was just like a creature that was probably like terrorizing the kingdom. He thought he did them a favor.
Right. Yeah. I remember. Yeah, I remember what you were saying. I forgot about that.
And then he's like, "You killed my bodyguard."
Yeah. All right, that was good. That was a good segment.
He's a classic trickster character. You see characters like that all over folklore. A bit that reminded me of some of those other characters like Anansi from African mythology was when, I forget who it was, the Dragon King or whatever he's called under the water tells Sun Wukong, hey, if you can lift this, you can keep it, thinking that he's never in a million years going to be able to lift whatever this object is. And then he does it.
Yep.
Things always seem to work out for characters like that in these stories.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, Mark, the point you're making, and Realms, the point you were making, it's kind of the same point. Realms, the way you were saying it, and Mark, you worded it another way, like regurgitated it. It's just the fact that
vivid word choice.
Oh man, just like how he was born from a crystal, so we should know from the beginning that he had special abilities, and that we should kind of know that and assume that as the movie goes, and how there are characters like this in other stories. They just are able to do certain things. So it's just something that the audience, the viewer, is supposed to know. I understand that sentiment to an extent. The thing is that Sun Wukong does these things to like nobody's surprise. Like his peers of monkeys, they can't fly or do like the crazy shit that he can do. When he dives underwater, it's not a surprise to him that he can do it. It's as if he's done it before. That's the thing, is that like I'm seeing this for the first, I'm seeing the character do it for the first time. I don't know what he's capable of. So the fact that he can just do that is something that I'm just going to roll with, That's the way I see it. But again, I understand that part of it is me not really cutting the movie slack. So that's just it for me. Mm-hmm.
I think where some of his powers come from, like the Shadow Clone Jutsu and all that stuff, him turning into the Great Ape. Some of that stuff that happened later was probably from him falling into that fire pit.
The elixir, yeah, like what Shen framed him on, like that was like the Emperor's secret elixir, and Shen was trying to make it look like he wanted to drink it, which would not only to them, not only would it not be possible, but it would be like the ultimate betrayal. But then he ends up doing it, and it makes him even more powerful, right? So like that there is an explanation for him becoming even more powerful in the second act going into the third act. But leading up to that, he's able to already do like certain things, you know?
Yeah, they don't really dig deep enough into the past to show you know, how he developed anything or what anybody else's first reaction was when he did it.
Exactly. Yeah. It comes off as that it's no big deal, as if we're already supposed to know that he can do anything, or that he's discovered himself that he's able to do it, and we just didn't see that before. But
although the monkeys don't act like it's no big deal, they worship him kind of because of the things that he can do.
That is true. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the monkeys saw everything that he did, but they're obviously aware that he has some superpowers, and that's why he becomes the Monkey King. Eventually, his higher title is like equal to heaven, right? I think that's what the Demon Bull King calls him. Yeah. Well, not Demon Bull King. Some character calls him that, and he just takes it. He takes it with him everywhere else. Oh man, but my criticisms for this movie is not just with the main character. There are other things that I didn't like. One of them being how they handled the female characters. So one of the main female characters is the wife of the Bull Demon King, who's also apparently the sister of the Jade Emperor. In the opening, I guess, what do you call the prologue? In the prologue scene, it's seen that the Demon King lost the battle at the gates of heaven, and the Emperor of Heaven is about to execute him, but his sister, which also happens to be the Demon King's wife, says, if you kill him, you have to kill me too. So the Jade Emperor spares him and banishes him back down to the gates of hell. Now, eventually we see that the Demon Bull King is preparing for his next assault and plans to use Sun Wukong to do it. His wife is pregnant and does not approve of it, but he wants to go through with the plan anyway. And then his wife says, it's either me or vengeance, something of that sort. And he's like, no, I will have both. So one of the cool things about the character is that he's just so evil that he's going to do it anyway. But first of all, why? Like, what is it? Just his pride that makes him want to go and attack the kingdom a second time, knowing he's probably going to lose? I mean, maybe he has the confidence of thinking he can trick Sun Wukong into working for him, but he lost the first time. And secondly, after that, his wife just kind of gives up. That's kind of what I don't like about the female characters. Like, one being his wife, she just starts crying and gives up. Why didn't she put up more of a fight there? I didn't really like how it just ended there. He just says, I will have both. She could have been like, no, I'm serious. It's either me or vengeance. Choose wisely. But she doesn't do that. So she kind of enables him to carry out his evil plan. So there's that. The other main female character, I think, is, I don't want to say the name wrong, but Ruxu. On Wikipedia, the name is spelled Ruxue. This is the character that can shapeshift into the nine-tailed vixen, nine-tailed white vixen. At a certain point during the movie, it shows that she was working for the Bull Demon King, because the Bull Demon King comes down and says that I was protecting your village, now it's time for you to repay me, right? And then she's just eventually kind of killed off. So she's used, basically, she was the first person that Sun Wukong ever met when he was kind of like a baby monkey in the crystal. And the explosion of that is what gave her a permanent scar on her paw. At a certain point in the movie, they kind of rekindle, but they met because he was kind of causing a ruckus. But as soon as she recognizes him, they kind of go off on their little date and they hang out and stuff. And he says that he's going to bring her immortality. That's the only power that he really, really wants that he never gets. But eventually, she's just killed off, and that makes Son Wukong go ballistic. I wanted to see. I feel like we didn't get to see the full potential of the Rook Soo character, and I wanted to see more of what she was capable of, not just like physically how she could like fight or anything, but just, you know, what else she could do in terms of a role that she could play in the story. Those were the two main female characters, and I didn't like how either of them were handled, to be honest.
Yeah, she kind of got shafted. She got the short end of the stick. Her only role was to roll over and die.
Bad, yeah.
But going back to the Bull Demon King's wife, the way they handled her, she essentially offered up her life in order to save his life before they were sent down to hell.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't surprise me, you know, that she would say, "Oh, it's me or heaven," and then he would just say both, and then she would just, you know, submit to that. Okay, it was basically a bluff because she loves him more than anything.
I see. Okay. Well, I mean, even if that were the case, I don't like that it was a bluff. I would have liked a little more pushback from her, you know, because last time she was willing to die for her love, and this time she could have made it so that she would be willing to die for her brother, because that the Jade Emperor apparently is her brother, if I'm remembering the events of the prologue correctly. So the story could have come full circle, but that's not really how it went. She just, like, we never see her again, I don't think, until the very end of the movie, where it's revealed that the Bull Demon King became demoted to an actual bull, and they have their child there and they're visiting him, right? And that's it. That's pretty much where it ends. I don't know if they pick up on that again in the sequels, but you know, this is a review just of the first movie, and that's honestly just how I felt about them handling it.
Yeah, I mean, they could have done, you know, something to give her a little bit more dynamic, but they definitely did keep her consistent. Because even at the end, as he was the bull, like they're still, she's still there with her daughter, saying that they're still going to take care of him no matter what.
Yeah, that was a lesson she was teaching to her daughter, that like, even though this is what he deserves or something, even though like
even though your daddy's a jackass,
he's still your father. We still love him, so we're coming to see him. And yeah, which I kind of like that. I kind of liked how the movie ended in that way. Son Wukong's story ends with him being in prison for 500 years. That's something else that he deserves, but he's happy-go-lucky about it too. That's another thing, is that like he doesn't fully grasp the destruction that he's caused, and he's going to sleep on the idea that like, oh yeah, okay, I'll go to sleep for 500 years and I'll be back. He's not apologetic in any way.
I mean, he's accepting, at least, because he understands, you know, he screwed up big. But he definitely, you're right, he definitely, in his behaviorisms, did not seem as remorseful as he should be. He should be, you know, a little bit more serious at that moment.
Yes. Yeah, that's how I felt as well. And again, this is an adaptation of Journey to the West. I don't know if like the original Son Wukong was exactly like par for par, exactly how Donnie Yen's portrayal was like in the movie, you know. So I will give a little bit of leeway there. So this is not at all a reaction or review of Journey to the West. That story is legendary and has inspired countless stories, you know, including Dragon Ball. This is just the Monkey King. I will say the actor that I recognized the most was Chow Yun-fat. I'm sorry if I'm saying that name wrong, who portrayed the Jade Emperor. He was also Master Roshi in Dragon Ball Evolution. And between these two movies...
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's... between these two... Dragon Ball Evolution is obviously much, much worse.
Yeah.
A million.
For shame.
Yep. Yeah, but I think that's pretty much overall. I know we didn't talk about every single thing that went on in the movie, but overall, from my initial viewing, that's pretty much how I felt about it. My criticisms plus my rationale that I may not have been who the movie was for. So, you know, putting those two together, Do you gentlemen have any other closing statements?
I do think you're right about the female characters. Unfortunately, that's also something that tends to happen in a lot of epic folkloric myths, like the story that this was based on. They tend not to give female characters as much to do, at least in certain traditions. And I don't know very much about Chinese mythology, but in Greek mythology, which I did study a fair bit when I was in high school and college, you'll have the wives of named characters not really being allowed to do much of anything except either cheat on their spouses, get cheated on their spouses, or wait for their spouses to come home. So, unfortunately, that tended to happen a lot in ancient myths.
I see. Okay. I mean, that's also kind of a criticism of Dragon Ball Z. I don't know about Dragon Ball Super. I know there are a lot of like active female characters in Super, but in Dragon Ball Z, that was a pretty common criticism is that like the main female characters are only around for a certain part, but then they become very minor characters, supporting characters later on in their arcs.
And full disclosure, I haven't seen an episode of Dragon Ball anything since middle school. So I don't get like half the references you guys are throwing around, but I'm having fun listening. I'm having fun listening. You guys are like sharing in jokes, but like I'm like, okay, who the hell is that guy that they're talking about? I don't know. Okay.
You remember Goku though, right? The most
I remember Goku. I remember Pickle Guy. Pickle guy. I just remember he was green and like his name was like Pickle something. I don't know. I called him Pickle Guy. And there was like a creepy old man with sunglasses.
Roshi.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I don't know. But like
Master Roshi, yeah.
I seem to recall there was a running joke of like him having a thing for like underage girls or something. Maybe I'm getting him mixed up with somebody else. I don't know.
I didn't know the girls were underage.
Well, okay, but no, I might have. No. Oh, wait. No. Okay, I don't know. Again, I haven't seen this show in like 10 years. 10.
He's
20.
right. Mark is right. Because going back to Dragon Ball, he wanted to peep at Bulma, and she was a kid at that time.
Oh no!
And he had her flash him.
Oh god, that's so wrong. No.
Yeah.
Sorry, Faerhad.
Roshi in Dragon Ball was a little out of control. I haven't seen him look at underage women in Dragon Ball Z or Super, though.
Okay, so yeah, Super corrected some of the bad elements of the previous, I guess the previous series, Dragon Ball Z, maybe even GT. But still, there's enough about Super, like things that I've seen and heard that I wouldn't want to jump in, honestly. But to each their own, I guess.
Mark, just be thankful that you've never seen Dragon Ball Evolutions. Just be thankful. You dodged the bullet.
Was that the live action movie?
Yes.
Actually, I did see that once. Come to think of it. No. It was. I remember it now. In college, I used to host bad movie nights in my dorm room, where my friends and I would get together. We'd drink beer and we just watch like the trashiest movies we could find, like Troll 2 and Tommy Wiseau's The Room. And yeah, somebody brought Dragon Ball Evolution once, so actually, I do remember seeing that.
Damn.
Okay, the concept of that though, like bad movie night, that actually sounds like it could be a fun time, honestly.
Oh, it's a blast. Like I've hosted a bad movie night in every state I've lived in. Like I love them. I think bad movies bring people together, like unironically, because you're not afraid to talk over the movie and joke around while you're watching it. Whereas if you put on a good movie, everybody just wants to pay attention, so it's more passive. But yeah, they're a hell of a lot of fun.
MGI bad movie night.
Yeah, there we go. We could totally do that, or like a live stream or something. Like
something to consider.
Oh, we could like watch, I don't know, something terrible like Birdemic or the new Cats movie, and then have somebody like live tweet jokes. I don't know, but
one bad movie a month.
Yeah, there you go. We'll hit our quota.
Oh man! Well, if you ever do bring back bad movie night, just as a hangout session, this would be on my list. I'm just saying.
All right. I'd be more than happy to introduce you guys to some of the many, many terrible films in my DVD collections.
Oh snap!
Well, Speaking of bad movies, before we go into ratings, so Realms, this was your choice. Is there anything else that you just wanted to put out there or have closing statements before we get there?
Oh, another reason that I forgot to mention that I chose this movie was because I started seeing the Sun Wukong game for PS5, and it looks very, very, very good. It looks a lot better than this movie. I'll tell you that much. And so, from seeing previews of the game and then jumping into the movie, the way that this Sun Wukong was acting was a lot different from how I imagined it was going to go. And the only excuse I can make for him for the way they portrayed him is, he's a deity, and they kind of age differently. They age for a lot longer period of time. So he's basically a big ass kid at this point in the movie. So that's the only excuse I can make for his immaturity in this movie. But man, please take a look at that Sun Wukong game preview.
Yo, you have a PS5 too?
No, I want one just for that game.
All right, yeah. I mean, you'll have your chance. I mean, I know this is a problem that you have that millions of other people have. But yeah, I'm lucky enough to have a PS5. I didn't know that they were making a Journey to the West game, but yeah, now that you mention it, I'm gonna definitely check that out. Cool.
I haven't tried to buy the PS5 yet, but
okay.
I saw that preview and I was like, "Yo, please tell me that's coming out for PS4." And then I looked and they're like, "Nah,
just PS5."
Nah. Yeah.
When you got time, yeah. Hopefully by the time that game comes out, it won't be such a problem to get a PS5 now. But it has been a problem for so many people that I know. But yeah,
I can't believe it's still a problem.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's more in demand than people expected, and then them scalpers problem too. But
yeah.
That's a whole nother story. It's a whole nother can of what. But just about Journey of the West, the Monkey King, Havoc in Heaven's Palace, going into ratings. I've said this a few times on this podcast. I didn't really like the movie. Like, there were things about it that I liked, but there were more things about it that I didn't like at the same time, though. It could just be that this is supposed to be appreciated just as a children's movie. Maybe the cinematography I wasn't appreciating the right way, like Mark, how you were explaining how maybe there was another way to look at it. Putting everything together, I don't want to go any lower than a 4 out of 10. This was the lowest anybody has ever given a review score on this podcast, so I'm just going to give it a 4. I'm not going to go any lower than that.
Damn.
Yeah, you're tying the score I gave the day after tomorrow, if memory serves.
And in previous episodes, our retired co-host Al Rogers, he gave Cloud Atlas a 4 out of 10, and the 2019 Aladdin a 4 out of 10. So that's the lowest anybody's ever given a review. So I'm just going to keep it at 4 out of 10 for this movie.
Making me the only one never to rate a 4.
Yeah,
you're just such a happy-go-lucky guy, Realms.
I'll find my white whale. I'll find my movie I hate.
Your movie dick, as opposed to Moby Dick. Yeah, your movie dick. Actually, no, don't. Maybe I shouldn't articulate it that way, because that makes it sound like a porno. I take that back. But, oops.
But it killed me, though. I love it.
Oh. I'm glad you appreciated the phallic imagery, unintentional as it was in this instance, but I digress.
Definitely.
All right, so what's your rating, man?
4.
All right.
No. I'll give it a 6. Reason being, I think my expectations for it were a little bit higher going into it, so I think that's why it kind of lowered the rating for me. And especially like going through it the second time, it was decent for me going through it the first time, but the second time it was not as easy for me to watch. So for me, it was a 6.
That's fair. I think that's fair. Yeah, I would kind of say the same, as that like my expectations were kind of higher. Yeah, so I agree.
I would give this an affectionate 7. It's not a perfect movie. There are some pacing issues, and as we've discussed, the female characters don't really have much to do. But I just love Donnie Yen's performance just so much. And we also haven't really talked about the prosthetics that he wears in this movie, but I thought those were unironically good. You know, it evoked the feeling of a monkey without venturing into like the uncanny valley territory. And yeah, the effects didn't look realistic, but I don't really think that was the point, as we've discussed. So I enjoyed this one. It's fun, it's energetic, and it's sufficiently mythic feeling for my tastes.
I can agree with you on the cosmetics with Donnie, because that was one of the biggest reasons why I didn't like the recast. I don't feel like it went over as well in the second movie.
Was it the same? Okay, so they recast from going from part 1 to part 2, but was it the same actor after that for part 2 to 3, or did they recast again after part 2?
Well, I only watched about 20 to 30 minutes of part 2, so I never got to 3.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, Mark, I think I would agree too. Is that like, you know, the design wise and the prosthetics, yeah, they did do a good job with the design. I personally didn't like the design. I just didn't like the way Son Wukong looked. But aside from my personal opinion of it, they did a good job. The costume designer did a good job with the way Son Wukong looked. So yeah, nice. All right.
I thought he looked his most badass right after he got pissed off and ran off to heaven. Like, that fit was perfect for him. Like, I think that's when he just had like the pants and like the shoulder pad. That was his best look in my opinion.
Yeah, like rugged after battle or during battle. Yeah. Gotcha.
I did like the sort of insectile armor they gave him with the big flowing feathers that almost looked like antennae.
Yeah, that was something.
It was absurd, but it worked because this is a larger-than-life character after all, so you'd expect him to wear something kind of ridiculous.
He was peacocking.
Yeah, exactly. He's peacocking.
Oh,
like those guys who read the game. Yeah, he's peacocking.
Well, Jurassic Mark, you gave this movie the highest score, and it also happens to be your turn to nominate the season of this podcast. So you take it from here.
All right. Well, I know we've got at least one zombie fan in the house, but I also know that you don't really want to go too hard on like the gory horror. So I'd like to nominate the original Night of the Living Dead, the George A. Romero movie that came out in the late 60s. It was one of the most influential monster movies ever made, and it also has the distinction of being the rare mid-century horror film with a person of color in the lead heroic role.
I know that movie is a classic, and how ironic is it that I'm actually wearing a Walking Dead shirt right now?
Shit.
Perfect.
Don't open Dead Inside. Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. I used to love The Walking Dead as a TV show up until season 6. That's the first season that I really didn't like. Then after season 7, which was the last season I watched, I just stopped watching the show. I completely lost interest after that. But yeah. All right, yeah. This is a classic. So as much as I am adverse to horror movies, I'll give this a shot.
Wait, you're adverse to horror movies, but you love The Walking Dead.
Yeah,
I'm just a little curious about that.
I mean, it's not that long of a story, but it's fine. It's an exception. The Walking Dead exception, yeah.
Well, you know, there weren't as many things you could get away with in the 60s, so it's not a very graphic horror film. It's more atmospheric than anything else, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, I'm up for it. I'm not totally. I feel less scared now than I did when Realms first nominated Triangle, which wasn't even a horror movie to begin with. But when he first said it and starting to describe it, I was like, oh no. But that was also a good movie. Yeah. Yep. All right. Cool.
All right.
It's definitely gonna be a new watch for me. I'm ready.
All right then.
Only the second oldest movie I've nominated, but I digress.
Oh shit!
Another classic. So. that just about does it for this episode of Movie Guys Improvise. You have been listening to
Chill with Realms.
Jurassic Mark.
and Faerhad Targaryen. Thank you all again so much for listening to us, and catch us again on our next episode this season, The Night of the Living Dead.
Mwahaha.
Chill energy only.